Right. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining the fourth small business webinar today on January 31st. And today's, excuse me, today's topic will be about contract compliance in construction contracting. And so we'll go ahead and move to the next slide. So we'll be doing a quick Monica and I will be doing a quick introduction as just for this, and we'll just go through this agenda here. Excuse me. So we'll be doing a quick introduction. Then we'll be moving on to our guests, the Department of Public Works, Bureau of Contract Administration, where they will be giving an overview of their Office of Contract Compliance, as well as their construction inspection, as well as the various operations kind of associated with that as well. And then finally, we'll go ahead and go over business resources and links as we usually do in these small business webinars. But with that said, just a quick introduction for why today's small business webinar on contract compliance in construction contracting is so important for you all as small businesses is because it's very important to know what you are agreeing to when you are beginning work with the city, especially within a construction procurement environment. We just want to make sure that you all as doing business or business partners with the city of Los Angeles understand, yeah, these are the requirements that are necessary, that there could be sometimes some monetary ramifications if some of these compliance requirements are not met. And so it is very important for you all to really be aware of all of the policies, the rules, as well as the compliance requirements that exist out there so that we can actually have a very smooth working relationship and just in full transparency on both sides. So with that said, I'll go ahead and I'll turn it over to, I believe, Linda for a word, and then we'll get into the presentation afterwards. So thank you, Linda.
Thank you, Daniel. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Linda McLinchy. I'm the Compliance Program Manager for the Office of Contract Compliance. And today I'm sharing with you a little bit about the Bureau of Contract Administration. Next slide, please. So who we are. The Bureau of Contract Administration has two different areas, really: compliance and construction inspection. And within that, we have different divisions. We provide legally required quality assurance inspection services for all public facilities and improvements, public or private, in the public right-of-way. In addition, the Bureau inspectors ensure compliance with all contractual and permit requirements to ensure that city standards are adhered to in a consistent and fair manner. Meanwhile, the Office of Contract Compliance promotes opportunity and compliance by providing businesses and all persons with the access to work on city contracts and ensure that they receive fair and equitable treatment. The Office of Wage Standards ensures employer compliance with the city's minimum wage ordinance, fair chance initiative for hiring, as well as other new labor laws. So today we're focusing more on the Office of Contract Compliance and inspection and how that interrelates with construction contractors. I will now, sorry, next slide. So Office of Contract Compliance, again, a little bit more of an overview. We have certification, outreach, regulations, and enforcement, which is referred to as the core section. Within that is business inclusion, which does business bidding and evaluations in terms of the business inclusion program, local business preference program, and the Board of Public Works mandatory subcontracting minimum. You're going to hear more about that, as well as centralized certification, which certifies businesses as minority, women-owned, small, or local, and you'll hear about those programs. We also have a speaker on equal employment and opportunity enforcement. Most of that, there are certain ordinances, again, that apply to construction, and they'll be talking about that. And the labor compliance section, which will be talking shortly about both prevailing wage and project labor agreements. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our Chief Construction Inspector, Angela Martinez.
Good morning, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me okay. Not good morning, good afternoon. It's my honor to be here today. And as Linda said, the inspection part of the City of Los Angeles, BCA, we're the city's representatives, and we ensure compliance with the plans, specifications, the enforcement of all safety regulations and legal requirements of the contract. We provide also specialty inspection like deputy inspection. We are the eyes and ears of the city, and we are the eyes and ears of LADBS for deputy inspection for specialty work such as reinforced concrete, masonry, welding. And we also perform things like materials control, where we go to shop inspections to see the fabrication of material. We also go to batch plant inspections for asphalt and concrete. Next slide. So what I was talking about as far as the construction inspector's role, our basic Green Book is our standard specification for public works construction in the right-of-way. It's coupled with the Brown Book. They walk hand in hand. Both of these books are found on the BOE website, not actually the Green Book, but the Brown Book. But it tells you where to go to find information as far as compliances and requirements of the city contracts on the BOE website. Standard plans that are used for constructions, things of that nature. The public witness, we document everything that happens, whether it's on a permit or a project site such as a cash contract for fire stations, police stations, bridges. Our reporting for cash contracts, we document and justify progress payments also, which means verifying quantities of work for acceptable progress payments. All of these are generated on forms, such for things like bid items, for how many feet of concrete was installed for curb and gutter, how much asphalt was installed on a street. All of that is recorded by us, the public witness, because we have to verify payments. But I believe the number one point of being an inspector is to be a good communicator. The inspector in the field is the point of contact, not only for the contractor, but for the community. We handle complaints, concerns from our constituents. We work hand in hand with the other bureaus, such as Bureau of Engineering, Street Services. We work hand in hand with the designers of the project, city council offices that have inquiries about how long construction is going to go on, when can someone visit the site. We also work with utility companies and sometimes LADBS. Next slide. So this is going to talk about, or I'm going to talk about, our web-based dispatch and inspection application. People go, well, how do we get a hold of you? Well, we're one of the only entities in the city that actually still has a phone number, but we also have a website, and it works 24/7, where you could schedule appointment requests for permits and city cash contracts, awarded city cash contracts. Now, what does all that mean? It means accessibility. And that's one of our mission statements is opportunity, compliance, and quality. We want to make sure that our public, you, the people, are getting the best quality product that we're all paying for. So what our inspectors do is we maintain inspection records for the permits and the cash contracts, And eventually they become public record in case someone wants to know what was happening there and if there's any lawsuits or anything. Also, we have our customers go to Navigate LA, another website that's sponsored by BOE, where you can check the permit status. A permit is issued anytime you're going to do work in the public right of way. That's all that we deal with. Let's say you want to redo your sidewalk in front of your home or a driveway. You have to pull a permit through the Bureau of Engineering. A lot of people are like, I don't know how to navigate all this. Well, BOE has a customer service request virtual appointment system, and now contract administration has something called project assistant meetings, where we can assist you with any of your questions with your city contract or your permit. And that's it's been going since November 1st of 2023. We call it the Project Assistance Meeting. You can find that in our BCA dispatch application. The website's noted there. Also, if you have any questions after this, I'll give you my city email, and I'm more than happy to help anybody navigate this, because I've helped a lot of customers, and you're going to be okay. We're going to walk you through it. Thank you. Next slide. Okay, so let's say you get a permit, cash contract. The first thing, which is a requirement, is going to help you and us. It's called a pre-construction meeting. Usually on cash contracts, you get a notice to proceed. Prior to the start of construction, we meet with the contractor, the subcontractors, any other city bureaus and departments who will have involvement during the duration of the project. During the pre-construction meeting, also a representative of the Office of Contract Compliance is there to discuss labor compliance, prevailing wage requirements, PLA, local hire, apprenticeship, and equal employment practices, because nobody wants to miss a step of a contract where you might have potential penalties or any type of disputed funds. We want you to succeed. That's what we're here for. The special research and investigation, that's where your subcontractor approval happens. What we do is we provide a list of bid listed and substituted subcontractors. We discuss the process for substituting or adding subcontractors so that the contractor does not get penalized by doing something that they weren't supposed to. Materials control, shop inspection, I talked about that briefly previously. We go into shops and inspect things for welding, electrical panels, galvanization of products. We want to make sure it's all compliance before it goes out to the field. We provide and discuss the list of materials and processes requiring these material control inspections and the approval of third-party inspections that are outside the 30-mile radius that we inspect in. And last but not least, project inspection. The daily operations, we talk about this in the pre-construction meeting. We discuss safety, administrative, and field construction requirements, progress payments, inspection requests through our dispatch, and information and help for project assistance meetings through our PAM. I believe that's it for me. I hope I didn't talk too long, but please reach out to any of us.
Thank you, Angela. And so with that said, Angela's email address is listed here on this slide, angela.martinez@lacity.org, as well as a website to find out more information and find out, I believe, more contact information about our inspectors, as well as the new app. It should be on this bca.lacity.org/inspection. Thank you, Angela. And so with that said, we're going to transition over, or actually, excuse me, and we will actually have a short time of question and answer. During this time, if anybody has any questions for Angela or the inspection division within the Bureau of Contract Administration, please feel free to ask away. If not, if we don't see a question in the next like 10-15 seconds, we'll go ahead and move on to labor compliance. So after each of the sections give their presentation, we'll pause for about 5 minutes, 10 minutes, depending on how many questions there are for each of the sections, and then we'll go ahead and we'll go through the question and answers as much as possible. And if we can't get to your question and or we can't answer your question immediately, we will go ahead and follow up with you all with an email as well. So seeing that there are no questions, thank you so much, Angela. And then we'll go ahead and we'll turn it over to Rosa from Labor Compliance.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Great job, Angela. Even me working in the Bureau, I always learn something. So inspection is very important. So now let's talk about the Office of Contract Compliance and Labor Compliance. So next slide, please. So labor compliance, what is our role? What do we do? So the main thing is that we want to ensure that the workers that are working on these public works projects are getting paid the proper prevailing wages. And that also these projects and hire apprentices, according to the different, crafts and standards. This is the contact information for our labor compliance officer. His name is Chris Jensen, as well as our PLA administrator, Ian Monte. So his information is there. We also have our email address. We also have a online certified payroll system. That's the system where contractors that are working on our public works projects enter their payrolls. So our senior management analyst, Jan, also does a seminar to educate contractors on how to use the system, troubleshoot, ask questions, as well as we have a prevailing wage seminar. This takes place the second Wednesday of the month. So if you're interested, you could always send an email to Jan, and they'll provide the link for that presentation. Next slide, please. Okay, so prevailing wage, it's pretty simple. We like to say it comes down to three things. Pay the proper prevailing wages. You're hired to work on these projects. The wage determination has been set. So a big chunk of that, contract that you receive, of course, is going to go to labor. So the wages have already been set. Ensure that, the proper, wage determination, pay the increases according to what the DAR says. So you pay the proper prevailing wages, no problems. The second thing is that you're going to submit the proper paperwork saying that you pay the proper prevailing wages. So have your fringe benefit statements online. If you're a union contractor, make sure that information is being sent to the union. Or if you're paying your fringes directly to a worker, have documentation. I think that's one of the most important things us as analysts when we're reviewing projects. If we see something that, we need some more clarification, we could email a contractor and say, hey, XYZ, show me your documentation. So if you have your documentation in line at the request of any analyst, you provide it, you won't have a problem. And then the next thing is utilize apprentices. If you're working with a craft that's apprenticeable, it is required that you employ apprentices. There's different forms. There's the DS-140 you're going to send over to the appropriate apprenticeship program to let them know, okay, I'm working on XYZ project. This is the timeline, the dates. Then when you're ready to dispatch or request a apprentice, you're going to send your DS-142 to let them know, okay, this is the location, this is the time, this is the apprentice that I need, this is where they're supposed to show up, the contact information. So you send it to the appropriate, union, apprenticeship training program so that they could dispatch that worker to you. And it says here, at least be able to show that you try to get an apprentice. Sometimes it may happen that you do dispatch and you don't get anyone from the union. Have your documentation set. A lot I know unions want it be sent by fax. There's some people that still use fax, even though we're in a different age. But if they need it be sent by fax, keep your fax receipts. So that way any analysts are requesting, send me your DS-140, send me your DS-142, and you say, well, I sent it, and there's your documentation. Next slide, please. Okay, so continuing. So what is prevailing wage? So it's the basic hourly rate that the state or the federal government has mandated to be paid on public works projects in a given craft. Like I mentioned, wage determination, right? So it will have, say, labor, it could be 39.23. That's the hourly rate that labor is supposed to be paid. And then the fringe benefits, it could be, 29.43. So the two combined together, that's going to be the prevailing wage for that classification. And there may be some increases. Most of them are July 1st of that, 2023, 2024. It says, okay, at this time, you're going to pay an additional $2.10. The DR may break it down, say, a dollar something to the hourly rate, 25 cents to pension or whatnot. Sometimes they'll say 210, to fringes or wages. So then the contractor has the ability to determine, okay, I'm going to, give this all to the worker, or I'm going to send it to the fringe benefit statements or to the trust. But make sure that when you are working on a project, you see all your increases, the breakdown. If it's ambiguous, contact the DRR. Oh, I would want to request the breakdown so that you are paying the actual wage. It's sometimes we're reviewing payrolls and we see, okay, wait a minute, there's something missing. The contractor didn't, really check. Maybe there may be an underpayment. So that doesn't happen to you. Make sure that you have all the information to pay the proper prevailing wages. And I think I touched that, the state's Office of Policy Research and Legislation, they're the party that is responsible for determining the state prevailing wages. They do that twice a year. So right now we're in 2024. So we're still actually in 2023-1. That's the current wage determination. The 2023-2, but the 2024-1 wage determination won't be in effect until after, I believe, February 22nd, 10 days after that. So make sure that, you have your advertised award date, so that way, okay, what is the date that I'm using to determine the wage determination. Most of the times the contract analyst will provide that information, but make sure you know it. So if you're working on a federal project, you also have to look at the federal rates to make sure that, you have the state rates and the federal rates. Most of the time, we live in the state of California. It is a very, high living wage. So the state wages are most of the times higher than the federal wages, but it's still your responsibility to look at both federal rates, because there may be some classifications where the federal prevailing wage is higher. So you will always have to pay the highest rate. Next slide, please. Okay, so who should receive prevailing wages? This is owners, operators, sole proprietors, partners actually performing work, and youth at risk workers. So if you have workers in an office, they don't get paid prevailing wage. You may have a supervisor, a superintendent, that's just, monitoring the project or, giving instruction to workers. They don't get prevailing wage, but the ones that I mentioned, they do. So when should they receive prevailing wages? So another thing is that it's really important, and we have some, circumstances where we've had to do investigations, is that if a worker has to go to a yard to pick up a truck, load some equipment, and then they drive the truck to the project site, when they start at the yard, the time starts, right? They're loading, they're doing all that to get ready to go to the site. You're supposed to be paying that time to them while they're loading, preparing, driving to the project location. That is still paid. The same thing at the end of the day, they're done, they load up the truck, go back to the yard, that should still be paid prevailing wage. So there's some exceptions like security, clerical, networking superintendents, all office site fabrication, virtually all office site fabrication except on federally funded projects. But if in doubt, you have a question on some scope and you don't know if it applies, contact your analyst, let them know. They will give you a determination whether that work is subject to prevailing wage. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is more information on overtime and holidays. So 8 hours in one day that work more than 8 hours in a day is considered overtime, and then more than 40 hours in a week is considered overtime. But It's also important to note and check with the corresponding crafts because some contractors or some unions recognize different holidays. So, we had Martin Luther King Jr. holiday this month. Some contractors still work. It wasn't recognized as a holiday. So make sure if you have a question, ask before, and so you pay accordingly. Next slide. Okay, apprentices. So as I mentioned earlier, apprentices must be employed on all city projects. So the contractor is not able to secure apprentice, like I said, you have your documentation, especially if you do not receive an apprentice or for some reason the union, doesn't have any or whatnot. So get that information in writing, and then there's some classifications where the craft is not apprenticeable. So, the analysts may know that or they may not. So make sure if they ask you, oh, how come you don't have apprentices? Oh, well, our craft is not apprenticeable. But there's not that many of those. Most apprentices or crafts are apprenticeable. So make sure you have your proper documentation. And then another thing that's really important is that your apprentices have to be registered in the DIR. And if you're working on a federal project, they also have to be registered in the DOL. Sometimes I've seen that the contractors say, oh, well, I didn't know that had to be registered. Yes, all apprentices have to be registered. If for some reason they are not registered, they need to get paid as a journeyman. And it's happened on projects that I monitored where the contractor was like, well, I thought the union was going to do it. And sometimes they do, but sometimes they don't. So make sure that if you are going to rely on a union to register that individual, that you communicate with them, because if not, you're going to have to pay the journeyman wages for that apprentice. As well as you need to provide a proof of training fund contributions. We need to receive that information. So keep all your documentation, because like I said, at any point of time, an analyst can request, where are you sending your fringe benefits, especially if we're working on PLA projects we'll talk about shortly. Next slide, please. Okay, so another thing to note important is the proper ratios, right? So the ratio of apprentices to journeymen should not be greater than the permitted under the respective apprentice program. So the ratio should also not be less than 1 hour apprentice work for every 5 hours of journeyman work. So we go by hours and not necessarily people. So when you're calculating or determining how much apprentice hours are going to work, look at your overall hours of your scope, and then from there determine how many journeyman hours you're going to work and how many apprentice hours are you going to need. So you request it accordingly, and the ratio is calculated based on, like I said, the total numbers worked on the project. And it's suggested that you look at the 1777.5 section of the labor code. Next slide, please. Okay, so now we'll talk about project labor agreements. So for short, we refer to them as a PLA. So what is a PLA? So it's essentially a contract that requires contractors on a project to operate under union requirements for this project only. So say you're a non-union contractor and you're going to work on a PLA project. So one, you have to sign a subscription agreement with the corresponding union. So that pretty much says, okay, XYZ contractor is working on ABC project. You sign your subscription agreement. You are bound by all the union provisions for that project. So you're going to be sending your fringe benefits to the union. You're going to be registering your workers. So for that project only, you're going to be a union contractor, right? So all contractors of any tier performing work on a PLA project are subject to all the provisions of the PLA. Next slide, please. There's some targeted hiring requirements, and these are the ones for PLA projects. So 30% of all hours worked on a project have to be performed by local workers. So pretty much kind of breaks down to 3 out of every 10 hours must be by local workers. And then 50% of all the apprentice hours must be by, local apprentices. And then the last one is 10% of all the transitional hours must be worked by transitional workers. That equivalent to 1 out of 10 hours. So we're looking at a project as a whole with the total hours. Of course, we understand there's some crafts that are not apprenticeable, so those are exempt, and some also scopes of work are very specialized, but that's kind of case by case basis. But when a contractor is agreeing to work on a PLA project, you're agreeing to help the project with meet these mandates. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is the contact information of Chris Jensen, Ian Monte. This is another link to our labor compliance section where we have the different PLA information, target hiring guidelines for contractors. So at this time, I can answer any questions that any individuals have regarding labor compliance.
Go ahead and give it about 15 seconds.
Okay.
But maybe a question for you, Rosa, from me
Sure.
is what are let's just say for a first time or I guess a contractor kind of doing their first labor compliance job or PLA job,
Okay.
what's a good way to get kind of I guess kind of a generalized like overview of the information of what labor compliance is? Do you guys offer anything in terms of like webinars and or seminars to kind of assist I guess first time labor compliance and or PLA contractors?
Yes. So like I mentioned, the second Wednesday of the month, we have our online certified payroll class as well as a labor compliance class. So that's like an introduction to labor compliance. This was just something very brief, but that class goes more into the details of working on a contract. I also monitor our HHH PLA project. So I do a separate orientation for our contractors that are working on our HHH PLA projects, because we don't want to say or hear, I wasn't aware. That's not an excuse. So we have this class. I actually just taught it last week. And so I asked, contractors to attend, provide information to them, answer questions. So yeah, so we have different trainings for contractors. One of our main goals too is to educate you. We want to make sure that you know what you're signing up to, and we provide assistance. I think I saw some questions in the chat. So who's considered a transitional worker? So we have various criteria. So one of the things is that we have jobs coordinators that go out and do interviews at these projects. So a jobs coordinator is someone or an agency that's hired by either a contractor or developer. So they go out there, they interview workers to see if they're transitional. So what that means is that, so there's two sets of criteria. One, so the jobs coordinator will go out, interview ex worker, ask them different questions. So one of the first requirements is that a transitional worker is a local resident. They must live within the boundaries of the city of Los Angeles. And there's, all these different zip codes. So they check the address of the worker. They live in the city of Los Angeles. Okay, that's the first thing. Then they ask them different questions like, are they a veteran? Have they been involved with the criminal justice system? Are they homeless? So if they meet one of those criteria, automatically they're deemed a transitional worker. So they have a form they fill out, and the jobs coordinator signs it, then the worker signs it, then they'll send it to the analyst. The analyst will verify the information, and once it's deemed, okay, this worker is transitional, then we physically mark that worker's hours on our online certified payroll system. So this worker is working on the project, so all their hours are going to be counted as transitional hours. Say that worker is also an apprentice, so that worker is what we call a golden worker. They're a local worker, the local apprentice, and a transitional worker. So that worker is going to help with all three different target hiring guidelines. So if you have a worker like that working on your project, their goal, keep on working on the project, because one, they're going to help you with the mandates, and then two, you're going to help them, because they have different barriers to employment. So the transitional worker is pretty much someone that has these different barriers, and so you're helping them, get a career in construction, overcome their barriers, as well as they're helping you to meet those mandates of the 10% that you need for this project.
Thank you, Rosa.
So that was that, and I think, let me see, there's Darlene Ramos said, how can I assist that class? Darlene, you're talking about the OCPS class, or I'm not sure which class. You could put it in the chat, but let me put also our website or our email address for our OCPS help. This is opcps.help. That's the email address if you are interested in attending our online certified payroll class or labor compliance class. Send them an email, and then they send you a link to the training class for the month of February. Okay, yes. So email OCPS help, and they'll send you the link for our next class. Okay, let's see. Camila has a question. Do the PLA percentages vary based on the amount of the contract award? No, the PLA, those percentages are set 30, 50, 10. So they do not change. So if there's a PLA project attached to a project, those are the percentages. Okay. I think that's it for questions. Unless anybody else has, okay, I see another one. What is the consequence if the contractor cannot meet the 30% mandate for local hire? Okay, thank you. Yes, we have this thing called liquidated damages. So, a contract or the prime contractor is the one that we will send what is called an LD letter, liquidated damages letter. And this is not at the end of the project. So no one's going to get surprised like, oh, project's over. Here's a letter. You owe $60,000. That's not going to happen. We have different progress meetings. We meet at the 10%, 30%, 50%, 70%, and 90% of the project completion. So we, work with our inspectors to find out where the project is. But say at the 30%, the project is not in compliance with the 30% of local hire. So we will request a recovery plan. Well, what are you going to do to get into compliance with the 30%? So as an analyst, we will work with you. We cannot force you or mandate you to hire anybody local. We could offer suggestions. At the end of the day, these are business decisions, but you sometimes money is scary, right? You could get an LD letter and it says, because you're not in compliance with the local hire, you're going to owe $60,000. Nobody wants to pay. We don't want your money. We want your compliance. So we will work with you, right? But also you have to understand that you have to have your subs be responsible as well to help you with the mandates, because there may be times where on projects, only the subs are doing other work and the prime contractor is more like a broker. So 100% of the responsibility is with a subcontractor. So, but we will work with you. But at the end of the day, the contractors are the ones out there working on these projects. So we will advise and give you some suggestions, but you have to work with your subs to, get in compliance. You're welcome. Okay. Any other questions? And I believe, Daniel, you said this presentation will be shared, right?
Correct.
Okay. So if you have any further questions, you could contact Chris or Ian or our OCPS help desk if there's some specific questions on our OCPS system. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rosa. And once again, the email addresses for labor compliance and project labor agreements are listed here for chris.jensen@lacity.org, Ian Monte, ian.monte@lacd.org, as well as their website is listed here. So please do reach out to them if you have questions on these two things. So with that said, we will transition over to the business inclusion section, I believe, with Mark Gutierrez.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mark Gutierrez. I'm a senior management analyst in the Office of Contract Compliance, Business Inclusion section. Next slide. So I'm going to be talking today about a couple of our programs, Business Inclusion Program and the Local Business Preference Program. First, Business Inclusion Program. It was established via executive directive under Mayor Villaraigosa when he was our mayor, still in place today. It applies on all city-funded projects citywide, which are all required to be advertised online on the ramp, and requires an outreach to diverse firms, minority, women, small, emerging, disabled vet, and other business enterprises. The program is unique in that it forces primes to not necessarily pre-select subs that they're going to use, and city staff ensures that all interested subs are fairly considered and that primes negotiate in good faith with them. At the tail end, once the project's built at the closeout phase, staff will ensure that all subs were utilized as pledged, and there may be possible monetary penalties when it's determined that they weren't. So for instance, if a sub that was pledged is substituted out with another sub, or the prime decides to complete the work with their own forces and the city didn't approve that substitution, the section would recommend monetary penalties against the prime in situations like that. We also have what's called a mandatory subcontracting minimum that applies on public works projects, where there's instances where, say, a prime can perform all the work required on a project, but the city, public works, We want to see smaller businesses get some of that work. So on public works projects, a mandatory subcontracting minimum percentage is established. And to be deemed responsive, primes need to meet that mandatory subcontracting minimum. All right, next slide. Our second program to discuss today is the Local Business Preference Program. What is that? It was established via ordinance initially in October of 2011, and then it was amended in June of 2021. Some statistics. As of February 2021, the unemployment rate in the city and county of LA was 10.9%, compared to only 8.5% in California and 6.2% nationally. So that shows a big disparity in the city as opposed to California and nationally. Why do we have this program? The city's policy is to reduce unemployment, stimulate expansion, and retain local jobs, as well as create a sustainable local economic development environment. The benefits of the program is that it creates local jobs, which leads to increased consumer spending, and the hope is a robust local economy. So how does the program work? Preferences, if you're a certified local, would apply on contracts both up to 150K and over 150K. The certifications in play are the LBE, Local Business Enterprise, LSB, which is Local Small Business, and lastly, LTE, which is Local Transitional Employer. Giving an example there, so on contracts up to 150K, if a prime is certified as an LSB or LTE, they can get a 10% preference on their bid. So as an example, if the lowest bidder, bidder A, is a non-LSB, non-LTE, and they bid 96,000, whereas bidder B is LSB certified and they bid 100,000, bidder B has a lower bid for bid evaluation purposes. They get a 10% preference. The city will evaluate their bid as if they bid 90,000 after application of the LBPP, and we can award a project to that higher bidder, the local who bid 4,000 more than the non-local. There's additional preferences if you're a non-local prime, if you list local subs in your bid. So that's a preference of up to 5%. So every 10% of your bid as a non-local prime that you list to a local sub, you can get a 1% preference. So to break that down as an example, if you're a non-local prime, you bid 100,000, but you list local subs in your bid to the tune of 40,000, you can get a 4% preference since 40% of your bid is being pledged to local subs. The program works similarly on contracts over 150K. Local primes get LBE certified primes get an 8% preference, and up to 4% more if they're also a local small business or local transitional employer. And similarly, non-local primes on contracts over 150K can also receive up to a 5% preference by listing local subs in their bid. I think I covered our slide. Can I see the next slide? Yeah. So I went over that quickly. Business Inclusion Program, Local Business Preference Program. Any questions can be sent to my section's general inbox, bca.biphelp@lacity.org. But I'd also be more than happy to answer any questions anyone here may have.
We'll give it about 10-15 seconds on the chat. So just to clarify, Mark, the LBE certification gives you access to those preferences, right? So they're more or less bid discounts, would you say? Or they just, I think you reiterated, you already said it in your presentation, but they're just kind of like bid discounts, right?
It's a bid preference in terms of evaluating. So in that example I gave, where the second low bidder at 100K bid more than the non-local who bid 94K, a project can be awarded to that 100K bidder, and that bidder will be paid 100K. But for bid eval purposes, we view it as a bid at 90,000, a 10% discount, as you put it, yes.
Got it. So, and I believe certifications will have a section later in this presentation, but another reason why to get your LBE certification to participate in the local business preference program. But seeing that there are no questions, thank you, Mark. And then we'll go ahead and we'll move on to the equal employment and excuse me. Camilas has a question. How long are the certifications valid for, LBE, etc.? Mark, if you want to answer that.
Luckily, coming after me, I believe, and after Edna in EOE is our certification section. I think they're geared better to answer that. Don't want to give wrong info. So if you could hold off for a couple presenters, that'll be answered.
Awesome. Thank you. And with that, we'll turn it over to Edna.
Hi everyone, my name is Edna Du, and I am with the Equal Employment Enforcement section, Equal Employment Opportunity Enforcement section with the BCA. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to go over a few of our most commonly applied ordinances. These are, as I said, most commonly applied to a lot of the contracts. So I just wanted to go over these really quick. One of the main ordinances that our section handles is the living wage ordinance. The living wage ordinance applies to contracts that are public leases or licensees, or service contracts that are over 25,000 and 3 months in duration. So under the living wage ordinance, employers are required to provide health benefits as well as our living wage. So currently the wage rate is $16.78 per hour. And it's required to provide either $1.25 per hour in health benefits or a full cash wage of $18.03 per hour. And on top of that, employers are required to provide 96 hours of compensated time off and 80 hours of uncompensated time off. And the rates that I mentioned increase every July 1st. The next ordinance I wanted to cover is the Non-Discrimination, Equal Employment, and Affirmative Action program. So under this, city contractors are prohibited from discriminating against any person on account of race, color, religion, national origin, ancestry, sex, sexual orientation, age, disability, marital status, domestic partner status, or medical condition. And this language is included in our city contracts. So when you sign on a contract, you're already agreeing to these provisions. The next two I'm going to cover are part of the compliance documents requirements also that we have on RAMP. So I thought it would be helpful to cover these. The first one is the Equal Benefits Ordinance, which requires city contractors to provide benefits to their employees with spouses, equally as employees with domestic partners, same and opposite sex. And the next one is the Disclosure Ordinances Affidavit on RAMP. So this actually combines two different ordinances, the Slavery Disclosure Ordinance and the Disclosure of Border Wall Contracting Ordinance. And these basically require that contractors disclose their participation either with the slavery disclosure or the border wall contracting ordinance as described. And as I mentioned, those two forms are available on RAMP as compliance documents. And if you have any specific questions about how these apply to your company or anything, you can always email us in our general inbox, bca.eoe@lacity.org. Next slide, please. And then if anyone has any questions, I can answer any general ones now, or you can always visit our website or email us as well.
And I believe Edna has a question. Does the city investigate EEO complaints from workers?
It depends on whether it's part of a city contract and how each ordinance applies to the contract. But we do figure out if we can investigate once we receive a complaint.
Okay, thank you so much, Edna. And so please feel free to email once again, bca.eoe@lacity.org if you have any questions regarding any of the equal employment enforcement sections programs, as well as please do check out the website for more information regarding these ordinances and or processes as well. So thank you so much, Edna. And we'll go ahead and we will turn it over to certifications and we'll pass it over to Hong To.
My name is Hong from the certification section. We're part of the core programs here at Public Work, the Bureau of Contract Administration. Next slide, please. So here, this is an overview of our certification programs. We'll get in more in depth each one, but for now, we do ownership-based, size-based, local business preferences, and proprietary department-specific programs. And just to answer the question that was quite before during Mark's presentation about LBE and LSV certification, how long they last. For LBE, it's their main program. That one lasts about 5 years. LSV and LTE lasts about 2.5 years or 30 months. And the local business program preferences is our main bread and butter here at the city, LA City. Next slide, please. So what's the benefit of getting certified? So what we do with this certification is to help legitimize small business in LA City and LA County specifically. We go through a lot of paperwork. We request a lot of paperwork. We check if the addresses and the business name is who they are. If there's any doubts, we go and have site visits, or we do like a virtual office visit also to certify. This helps legitimizes businesses. Just to answer the question in the chat, which certification lasted 2.5 years, it will be for LSB, which is a local small business, and LTE, which is a local transitional business or enterprise. Those will be 30 months each. And when you get certified, you have a preference over non-certified, meaning that if there's someone who's non-preference or non-certified, they don't get the bonuses that were presented in the business inclusion presentation. So LBE provides the applicants with 8% advantage, while the LTE and LASP gives the bonus is 2%. And depending on how big the contracts, if it's over 150K, you may get 12%. If it's under 150K, you get a total of 10%. And it's also used as a marketing tool to reach our potential clients. So right now, if you're if you have a RAP account and you are LBE certified, you're in the pool of businesses that are eligible for certain contracts and preferences, whereas people who are not certified. It just gives you an extra edge if you are located in LA to compete over other businesses that may not be present in LA County. Next slide, please. So ownership-based certification. These certifications are pretty broad. I believe they're also national. So you could go through many departments, not just LA City, that provide some of the states, state general services, or DOT, Department of Transportation. They provide the services, and we'll provide links later on so that you can go to the correct link to get each certification. But ownership-based certification will be minority-based business enterprise, MB, women business enterprise, WB, DBE, which is the main bulk of it, the disadvantaged business enterprise. There's also airport concession. So it's for airport businesses, but you also have to be eligible as a DBE certification also. And there's also DVBE for local state stable veteran. And all these, as you can see, you need at least 51% owned and controlled by one or more minority. So 51% owned, meaning that if you have a partnership or you have a stake in this company, you need to own at least 51% of it. So it's pretty straightforward. It's not too hard to understand, but the control part may be a bit more ambiguous. You need to have certain control over the company and to be the main person or to be certified for these programs. So if you're a business and if you're a woman-owned, you need to have at least 51%, but you also need to have appropriate education and background to back up the certification so that you can apply for it. So someone in your family can't just pick your aunt or sister or and use their name and their status as to apply for a WBE. So we do a thorough check. It's a pretty long process, It may take a few months or 1-2 months, depending how fast the applicant responds and how fast we get through all the paperwork. But yeah, next slide, please. So what are the presumed disadvantaged groups? So this is based off the federal or the national script. So it's woman, Black American, Hispanic American, Native American, Asian Pacific American, and subcontinental Asian Americans. Like stated below, it may be case by case. But usually these are the main group currently right now. And what does it mean to have control? So we want to see credential license of the main person holding it. We don't want to have if you're the owner and you're the one representing 51%, we can't have you have another person holding a license or credential. You need to be the main one holding it, and they must be all independent for-profit business. Excellent. So this is LA City or LA County main certification. This is what we do in LA City. So we have this program called the LBPP, the Local Business Preference Program. And the main one is LB, which is a local business enterprise. I would recommend anyone who wants to work within LA City or getting a contract, they must register on RAMP to apply for an LB, register. Once you get your LB, there's criteria that you need to fulfill. LB is very standard. You just need to be a legitimized business within LA County. And once you're certified as this, and you know that you're within LA County, and you know that you can be certified, you can also apply for LSB or LT. LSB, we require different paperwork. One of the main criteria is that you need to be under 5 mil for gross receipt. So depending if you are if you're buying and selling things, it needs to be under 5 mil. So it may get a bit confusing when you do it, but most of the businesses that do apply for this program are under 5 mil. There are also LTE, local transitional employers that could apply, but you have to show that these workers are transitional, meaning that they're maybe from a criminal background, or they're certain, or home, they don't have a home and such. So yeah. Next slide, please. There's certain location-based certification. These are some of the common mistakes for getting rejected from the LBPP program. Attaching incomplete applications, so not filling all the checks or lines that are required to be filled in our application. Inconsistent addresses. So we do cross-check all the addresses and business name across your BTRC, business tax registration certificate, your RAP business profile, and your Secretary of State business registration. It's also by case, because sometimes there may be a parent company hovering over a subsidiary, and they're registering, they're using their subsidiary to register or sign up for the LB program. But I also recommend anyone who works in LA County that wants to apply for this to have a BTRC with LA City. This is what we look for. And also for the Secretary of State business registration, depending on what corporation or how your business is set up, you may be required to register on it. Partnerships don't have to be registered, so it really depends. And also we so including the L's. So yeah, that was explained. So just make sure that your business name is consistent on all documents, so that doesn't get rejected. Next slide. And also, we don't accept membership agreements for space. So no co-working space, no share space. We only accept leases or mortgages or home office that provides mortgages for ownership of it or a deed. Property tax is also okay. We reject membership agreements based on the criteria that's laid out on the procedure and guideline that was drafted back in 2021. I know that a lot of people like to hide or like to prevent other people from seeing your business through a PO box, which for privacy reason. But once you're in the system, you need to let us know, or you have to be presenting your address so that we could certify, we could recognize where you are. That's the only way that we could legitimize that your business is what you put in the application. Also, if you have a lot of ramp ID, we notice that when people go through ramp, they may have, they go on ramp and they may not go on for a few months, and they can't get in. They create a new account, and they have another account that has the same name, same tax ID and phone number. We may decline you or reject you because of this, and we may ask you to submit a ticket through Snow LA City ramp. And it's pretty simple. You just let them, once we reject you, we'll let you know that there's duplications on our ramp, and you could go ahead and we'll provide a picture of which account needs to be disabled, and then you just need to submit that to the snowlacity.org website, and that way they could get rid of any multiple accounts. Okay, and how do you apply for a paper-only application? We take in by mail. All the forms can be found at our website here at bcalacity.org certification. For MB and WE, we are currently still taking the mail form because of notary. You need it to be notarized, so it needs to have a wet signature, and it needs to be sent, so it needs to be mailed in. For small business enterprises, proprietary paperwork, that needs to be mailed in also for now, but hopefully in the future we could change that to make it easier for everyone. And this is our address here where you can mail it to. Next slide. And the online applications. So this is through RAP. For DBE and ACDBE, this is through the website lacdiversitysoftware.com or CUCP, California Unified Certification Program. It'll provide you with the right website where to apply and all the paperwork that is needed. So it's a neat website where it tells you what it needs to be submitted, and you could apply for DBE and ACDBE through this website. For our main programs here, you go through the rapla.org, and here are the list of programs that you can apply through. Local business enterprise, local small business, LTE, and disabled veteran business enterprise and local business enterprise. So I know there's a lot of certifications for LA City, but depending on who you are, which one fits you, it's best that you apply for them so you have preferences when you're getting contracts. Or even if you have preferences, and you may show up on the awarding authorities list when they are trying to look for contractors. Next slide. Also, we just want to let everyone know that we have certain events that are coming up with LA City. They're a flagship networking program, brings together collaboration between the mayor's office and various council offices, including the Office of Procurement and Department of Public Work. We have 3 events right now: Build With, Team With, Rise With. It's basically to educate the community, educate the applicants on how they could get contracts, how they apply for it, and what will make you stand out. So it's a learning process. And there's, yeah. So, and also there's a LA Small Business Academy that we do every year. And we also have a YouTube channel where you can get an overview of what we do, or what, basically some of the information in regards to doing business in LA, how to start doing business with LA. And let's see. And that's about it for this slide. Next slide, please. So information, this is the information for our next event, Accessing LA, Build With. It's on February 27th on Tuesday at the Expo Center at 3980 Bill Robertson Lane, Los Angeles, CA 0037. I'm sorry, did anyone have a question? Okay. So you can find the event on our website at accessingla.com. And there's a link on this page to our mailing list. So even if we are between events, you can sign up to be notified when the next one is going to occur. Okay, next. I think that's about it. And this is our certification section. Melissa Savage is our certification manager. You could always reach us at pcacertification@lacd.org for any questions. And this is our other website, our main website. Thank you.
Awesome. And so we'll pause here for any questions regarding the certifications, as well as anything, or I guess any questions about certifications, we can go ahead and try to answer here. And then we'll give it a good 10-15 seconds. Let's see. And Agnes asks, is there a way to sign up to be on your agency's email list? And so, and maybe if I can ask for a follow-up question from you, Agnes, do you mean for RAMP, or is it more specific to the Office, or excuse me, Bureau of Contract Administration email list? Is there, could you help clarify that question? Got it. So more for the Bureau of Contract Administration, do you guys have any? Got it. So Melissa responded, there is a link to get on BCA's mailing list on accessingla.com. Okay, awesome. Any other questions for the certification group? Okay, seeing none. Thank you so much, Hong. And so, yeah, so once again, we do have this presentation will be sent out at the end. There's a lot, it's a wealth of information here, as well as contact information, as well as links to the various groups that gave presentations today. But on this page here, we do have the general contacts for the presenters, as well as the various groups that presented today as well. So with that said, we'll just get into just a couple of the additional resources that our office, the Office of Procurement, does provide. We do have monthly webinars for RAMP registration. There is, I believe there will be a link in our chat that leads to that registration. So if you're interested in procurement opportunities with the City of Los Angeles, and more specifically interested in how to register for RAMP, that's actually a regular webinar we do so that we can help you get registered. There is a time for question and answers and live support in terms of answering questions on the RAMP registration process, as well as this is the small business webinar series. Currently we're on our 4th one, and I believe we have about 2 more planned for now. We will be sending out, and I believe the link is here, but I believe we'll put it in the chat here as well. We are sending out a survey link, so please do provide us feedback on these small business webinars. I believe that's it's a relatively short form, or excuse me, survey, but please do assist us with feedback, as well as I believe there is a section that goes over any future topics and or things that you'd like to see discussed within the small business webinar as well. So please do fill that out. Additional City of LA procurement resources. We do have a business source centers as well. A couple of the business source centers that we'd like to highlight are PACE, which is the, I believe the Pacific Asian Consortium, or I could be wrong, but please do check out the links here. They do have multiple programs to assist vendors with either technical assistance responding to RFPs, I believe some level of certification help, at least maybe going through the paperwork, as well as the new Economics for Women group, Business Source Center. So please do check those 2 out. We have a link for the Accessing LA website, as well as the Small Business Academy. So please do check out the links there for more information regarding those 2 programs. We will be sending all of this information out, including this webinar slide deck, through the resource folder link, as well as a recording of this presentation, which will be emailed after shortly after this presentation is finished. So I believe with that, if you have any questions for us, us, the Office of Procurement, please do feel free to contact us through the SNOW portal, which is the ServiceNow portal. It's snow.lacity.org/RampLA, and you can go ahead and ask questions there and get a hold of the Office of Procurement regarding anything related to RAMP or citywide procurement matters as well. So we do have multiple social media platforms as well, as we have Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. So these are all hyperlinks. Please feel free to click on these when you have a chance, when you receive the slide deck, and check them out. Please do subscribe to our LinkedIn feed as well as our YouTube channel, as this webinar recording will be posted there, and you'll also be able to find other recordings and helpful helpful webinars and things like that on that website, or excuse me, on that YouTube channel as well. So thank you so much, and thank you for the RAMP support team for putting those hyperlinks up there as well. So with that said, I believe we can give you guys some time back, but just as a one last chance, are there any questions for the presenters or anything else that we can help address during this time? And if not, we can go ahead. Please feel free to email us or use the ServiceNow platform as listed here, and we can answer your questions there as well. Okay, well, thank you so much. Thank you to the Bureau of Contract Administration for providing this presentation, as well as all of the work that you all do. And with that said, this will conclude the fourth small business webinar. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon, and hope to see you again. Take care. Bye-bye.